I want to share with you a review of a Catholic book on fundraising that I recently read that I think you're really going to like for three particular reasons. One, it's from a priest. Two, he talks about real life situations about how he fundraised and how he was successful at doing it. And then third, his practical advice from a Catholic perspective on how to fundraise. So I think you're really going to like it, and let's just dive into it. So the book is Grateful and Giving by, and it talks about Monsignor Thomas McGread. And here's the book. I'm going to have a link to the show in the show notes on the book. And so he's a parish priest from, I believe, the Diocese of Kansas. I have a horrible memory. That's pretty much the only reason why I think it's that, but I have a horrible memory, and everything else I've written notes so I don't forget. But so he was a Catholic priest. He's a Catholic priest, and he was responsible for some pretty incredible things. And he started off as just a priest in the diocese, and the bishop asked him to take on a parish that was in debt. So, that's how common is this of a situation. So he went in and he was asked to kind of like turn things around, and is really, really interesting on how he did it. So I'm going to first talk about the things that he did in his parish. Then I'm going to walk you through how he expanded on it and had an impact both on his diocese and at the national level. And then we're going to walk into just the practical steps that he says of how you can replicate. So we're going to first start as what he did as a parish priest and how he turned things around. So he pretty much lays it out in four things. So he did four things to turn things around, and reading it makes sense, complete sense, and it's very different than what a normal fundraiser would do. So that's why I think this is really, really interesting. So the first thing that, now he's a Monsignor, so I'm going to call him a Monsignor. What Monsignor did was he recognized that time is the biggest gift. So instead of going immediately to his parishioners and saying, hey, will you donate money, he recognized the number one thing, the most valuable thing that actually my parishioners have is time. So he was asking his parishioners to consider their time, the time they spend at the parish. What different things can they do to participate in just the life of the parish? So that's number one. Number two, he implemented a parish newsletter, which most people are doing. However, he kind of does it a little bit different, where it's not just updates, but he's trying to link the kind of like what he's asking people to do, so in their involvement, linking it with a newsletter. So not just saying, this is what's happening, but he was trying to figure out how he can bring people in. So it's not just kind of a newsletter that's listing facts, but it's much more livelier than that. So that's kind of what you want to do for activity number two. Activity number three, and I was really happy to read this from Monsignor. He's a big believer in events, but not fundraising events. And most people don't believe me. But every time I see successful fundraising, either from a fundraiser or from a priest, they agree with me. And that's, when you have an event, don't make it fundraising. So he had free nights, free pizza nights, he said, probably other things as well. And he just invited people to be part of the community of the parish and get to know one another and to get to know what other people are doing. So it was building community. And then the fourth, it was about commitment. So he was asking each one of his parishioners each year to write a letter of commitment to his parish. So instead of saying, here's a pledge form, what are you committed to giving? He made it differently. He said, what activities are you going to be doing? So predominantly on that. And then also, and this would include obviously donations. And the real results, and this is fantastic, is that the attendance increased, involvement increased, donations increased, and obviously they got out of debt. So everything that you could possibly want out of the parish happened. And you can really relate this to any type of organization that you're doing if you follow these 4 different activities. So that's what he did at the parish level. Now let's just jump into what he did after that. So after he helped his diocese and also the United States Catholic Bishops Conference as well with their fundraising. And what he did, he just kept true to what he knows works. So he implemented at the diocese his way of thinking and his way of fundraising. And actually, I should pause on the word fundraising because he consistently uses the word stewardship, which I fully agree. One of the only reasons I use fundraising is because it catches people's eye. And you actually want to do stewardship. So he followed these different activities of the time, and then the communications, the bringing people together, and then the commitment, a written form of commitment. And I believe, again, if my memory serves me well, he raised, or the diocese raised, over $17 million in pledges. That's absolutely fantastic. And once he had that success, he went on to help the Bishops' Conference, and they wrote a pastoral letter on giving, like a disciple's response to giving. And I'll have the links to that as well. And it's more of a theological reflection on his approach. This book, however, is a much more of a practical guide. Highly recommend you just buying a copy. It literally is, it's 160 pages. I read it in an afternoon. So that's that. And I just want to finish with practical advice that Monsignor gives all of us on fundraising. And these are, again, 4 simple practical advice that he gives us. Number 1, he asks that we see a campaign not as a program, but as rather a life. So think of it as you're developing it, the right habits, the right approach to your mission, your vocation, your organization, whatever you're doing. It's all embedded. So look at it like that. Advice number 2, he says, establish a stewardship committee, which is responsible for implementing the way of life rather than implementing the tracking of financial targets. So when you have a board or you have a committee, you want them to make sure that they have that written commitment, that they're involved, and not just showing up, once a quarter, but they're committed in the day-to-day. Advice number 3, he says, ask the people around you what they need. And again, once I heard this is spot on. I'm really happy to hear that this is what he's doing, because this is what I'm doing. I'm always interested in what people are looking for. And so even though, I'm helping Catholic organizations fundraise, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what is that Catholic organization's mission and how can it best serve other people? So you've got to ask, you've got to take surveys and figure that out. And then advice number 4, he concludes his advice for success with a phrase. Very, very, very inspiring. Don't worry about your numbers. Worry about the people you can get involved and really take care of them. And again, just it's spot on. It's spot on. You really have to focus on people, because every donation comes from the hands of another person. So if you're not taking care of the people around you, if you don't know who those people are around you, it's going to be very hard to fundraise. So I hope this review of the book, again, Grateful and Giving, was very, very helpful. Leave comments below. Let me know what you think. If you have any advice to share with other people on your fundraising, let us know. God bless, and see you next week. Bye. If you enjoyed this video on fundraising, make sure to subscribe. Right over there, it's going to be somewhere. Also, if you just enjoyed the scenic views of Catholicism in France, make sure to subscribe as well, and just follow me along on learning how to fundraise and seeing the beauty of Catholicism in the south of France. Cheers. Santé.